his coaching style is fantastic, and his ability to really connect with people, and I think that comes from his background. So I'll give you a little bit of it, and I think you could probably tell a little more of it. But he spent 30 years. Well, first off, started as an athlete, baseball player, but learned that football may have been his calling. Ended up at Temple University playing football. Ended up getting drafted to the NFL. Played in the NFL for a couple seasons, and then pursued his rest of his career in the Department of Corrections. So 30 years in corrections, I believe.
Yeah. 30 years.
30 years.
30 years.
Which is, there's some ridiculous stories that probably shouldn't be told here, but
and won't be told here.
Yeah, but if you get a chance to ever talk with Vince, it's really, really interesting and entertaining. But during that time, I think what I've learned from Vince is how much he learned about people and learned about different mindsets and cultures and communications, and learned Swahili in the process as a language.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Stuff you need to know when you're in that environment. But then during that whole time when he was in corrections, he also started a gym. And started a gym. It's been probably almost 30 years now, too.
Just about 30, a little over 23, actually.
Yeah. And just a great story that I think to some degree maybe we've heard before, but really cool. I really want you guys to hear his story of how the gym evolved, and really how the name evolved is super special. But Vince really started this in his garage, just out front, probably small garage, and then moved into a place where he had a great basement. Was the basement like 1,200 square feet or something?
2,500 square feet.
Was it that big?
Yeah, 25, about almost 3,000, yeah.
Yeah, so that turned into a pretty nice gym scenario, but it got busy in there. You had 110 members, started getting a little crazy.
Yeah.
So then we started talking a few years ago, and Vince was about ready to retire from corrections and kind of go all in to really build this facility, and that's where we started talking about getting together and putting together a facility that had strength conditioning as well as this rehab side. And we first met at a conference where we were both attendees at the conference, and I had an opportunity to speak a little bit about screening and doing an FMS screening and screening people about injuries and things that we find, especially in active folks in the fitness community. And so Vince and I were just talking afterwards. He's like, this is something I really want to bring to his people, because of course as a strength coach and as a fitness coach and as somebody in this career, we find people, and everybody's got something. It's just a matter of how much do they have to get it fixed, how much do they have to address. So he obviously wanted to bring some value to his members and help them live a better life and be able to be more successful in the gym. So that's kind of how we started to get going.
First off, thanks for having me here today. It's our relationship has been great, and I think it's really taken its steps along the way. Like any relationship, there's always good, there's always bad, but you always work through it.
Right.
We met at a conference, and I do remember listening to movement and understanding the people that we have in our facility, which ranges anywhere from 6, 8 years old all the way to 80 years old. But what I really noticed is that our adults don't move and didn't move very well. So listening to Tony and his expertise, and he's phenomenal at what he does, afterward I was like, hey, I just want to know a little bit more about this. And in the interim, the one thing I came to know is that as a strength coach, you're not a physical therapist. And as a strength coach, you don't know as much about movement as the people who actually do it every day and deal with people who have the injuries and surgeries and the pathologies that they have. So learning more about that from Tony and his team, really, I thank you for that, because it's made our coaches a lot more alert. And we've been through a process of coaches. So I think the one can't really do without the other in a lot of senses, and that's really kind of, I think, how we decide to put some stuff together.
Yeah, so true, because on the other hand, from a rehab perspective, what we see clinically is, rehab's quite boring at times, and the typical, certainly PT model is a fairly stagnant, it's oftentimes kind of old-looking center that's been around for a while, and it's not really a place of movement. Mm-hmm. So for us to be inside a facility that has the like mindset, where we can help folks that are maybe in the lower end of their performance, where they've had an injury, or they're a little bit bogged down by some stiffness or some mobility dysfunctions, or they're a little bit weak, and we can kind of help fine-tune that process and get them moving and set some patterns. What we really need as a PT group is the support of strength conditioning to then push them. And I think that's one thing as a therapist that typically as therapists, we're not going to push somebody as hard as a strength coach would, maybe because we have this just more rehab kind of safety mindset to some degree. So it's so great to be in an environment like you need to be pushed now and take your body to the next level. And it's really this yin yang balance. And we call it a continuum, right? Is that we've got people that start on either a pain state or a mobility state, maybe a weakness state, and they move into more of a stronger state, and they start moving faster, more explosively, and they return back to a performance level. And then where we work together as a PT and strength coach is really that space in the middle, somewhat mobility, somewhat strength, somewhat speed. PT probably works a little more mobility, like maybe 80% of the folks we see, and strength is 20%. We kind of are both 50-50 on strength, probably, maybe a little more to the strength team. And then when it gets towards speed, we might have a few fine-tuning things on the rehab side, but then really the strength team is going to take that on and build it. So it's this constant communication and working with the clients individually and as a group to get people to that level. So that's been so much fun.
Yeah, and I think on that note, the missing piece in there is actually the confidence level, right? So we're along the way, we talk about speed, we talk about power, we talk about strength, but really what you're building is their confidence to perform in a speed state, a power state, and a strength state.
Right.
And I think that's where the two really support each other, and one platform leads to the other platform. And depending on how well that other platform is, depends on how long people have a relationship with you.
Right. I want to talk about that a little bit because I think this is where Vince really shines, and for me is the best I've ever met at it, frankly, as far as engaging with people and learning about them, what drives them, and where their hurdles are going to be in their process. And we were talking about this the other night, but that's really true coaching.
Yeah.
Is where you identify someone's deficits or maybe where their hurdles are. Maybe the person's not even aware of it, and then to be able to help them see that and overcome it.